Resuming debate, reprise de débat, the member from Scarborough-Rouge Park.
Madam Speaker, I'll be sharing my time with the member for South Shore St. Margaret's. Madam Speaker, I'm extremely humbled and honored to stand here as the first member for Scarborough-Rouge Park. I want to thank my constituents for entrusting me to represent them. I want to congratulate all of my colleagues for their election and their re-election, and I wish to congratulate you on your election as Speaker. I'm committed to working collaboratively with all of you in this room and for the betterment of this country. I'm proud to speak in support of the speech from the throne. Madam Speaker, Scarborough-Rouge Park is one of 6 ridings in the former city of Scarborough, now part of the city of Toronto. We have one of the most diverse communities in all of Canada. Mr. Speaker, permit me to take you through some of the priorities in my riding and for the region. We are blessed with the best that nature has to offer, with the Rouge River, a new national park, the Toronto Zoo, Highland Creek, and the Scarborough waterfront, offering some of the most beautiful landscapes in the GTA. The Rouge Park is at the heart of my riding. It is a life work for many individuals and groups. Our government is committed to bringing the full potential of the park to life. I'm excited that the Prime Minister has, in his mandate letter to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, asked my colleague to work with the Ontario government to enhance the country's first urban national park, including improved legislation to protect the important ecosystem and guide how the park will be managed. I'm very confident, Mr. Speaker, that we can all come together to build a national park in our region that will reflect the needs and aspirations of the community and leave a legacy for future generations. Mr. Speaker, Scarborough, like many suburban regions in our country, needs infrastructure. Starting next year, the co-op agreements in the 12 co-ops that exist in our riding will be expiring. We have over 900 families living in the co-ops. We need to ensure that we work with the co-ops to have stable, predictable funding. The previous government has ignored the much-needed infrastructure of our communities. We couldn't find a better time to invest in infrastructure. We have historical low interest rates. We need proper infrastructure to create much-needed jobs and to attract employers. And we have inherited an economy in need of a boost. This is why our government will invest to build much-needed infrastructure. In Scarborough-Rouge Park, we need to upgrade our housing for veterans, transportation that will allow families to spend more time with each other than on the road, community centers for youth and seniors, and co-op housing for our seniors. Mr. Speaker, youth are an integral part of the riding. I'm proud to represent an area with a high youth population. The Malvern and Danzig communities are great, vibrant places where youth thrive when given the right opportunities. Our youth need the right support. They need to stay in school, give increased employment opportunities, and feel like they're part of the community. Our youth employment strategy will be essential to ensuring that youth are able to develop the right skills at the right age to prepare them for the jobs of the future. We need to create jobs and opportunities in Scarborough-Rouge Park. To this end, I'm excited that the Rotary Club of Scarborough has undertaken a new Scarborough Revitalization Project. As part of the project, the Scarborough Business Association was inaugurated earlier this year. It is my hope that this association will be the center of business and industry development in Scarborough and will lead to much-needed job creation. Mr. Speaker, I look forward to working with my colleagues in order to advance the issues in my riding. Mr. Speaker, I'm deeply disturbed by the continuous stigmatization of refugees, both in this House and outside. We have, in recent times, defined refugees as terrorists, burdens, undesirables. We demonize them. We have failed to understand and empathize with human suffering and humanitarian crisis. Today, as we gather in this House, refugees from Syria are preparing to come to Canada and call this their new home. The hopes and aspirations of these Canadians are no different than the generations of refugees that came before, and I suspect will be similar to those who will come after. Canada welcomes our newest refugees with open arms, the same way we welcome the Afghanis, the Kosovars, the Somalis, the Tamils, the Vietnamese, the Ismailis, and so on. Some of us in this House were refugees ourselves at one point, and like all those who came before, are proud to give back to this country. Our Minister of Democratic Institutions, our Parliamentary Secretary for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, and my good friend representing the riding of York South-Western are just such examples of this contribution. I want to share with this House my story, Mr. Speaker. I'm a proud Tamil Canadian who came here as a refugee from Sri Lanka. The Tamil people are a persecuted nation. Over 100,000 Tamils have died in a bloody war. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has found that war crimes and crimes against humanity have taken place in Sri Lanka in the last phase of the war. Tamils are seeking justice, an international independent criminal investigation into war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Although the war ended in 2009, peace has evaded the island. There are reported cases of sexual violence. Military occupies land traditionally owned by Tamils, and Tamil political prisoners are lingering in jails, in some cases for decades. It is in this context that people fled, seeking a safe, secure place to raise their family. In 2010, I had the opportunity to meet some of the Tamil refugees who came on the MV Sun-Sea. I met countless men, women, and children. And I will never forget the story of one of those women. In the last days of the war, she was hiding in a bunker with her husband and 3 children. She went to get water for her family. As she left the bunker, a shell hit and destroyed her life. Her 3 young children and her husband vanished in seconds. This mother had the courage to get on a ship with strangers, risk her life in order that she can put her life back together. This is one refugee experience, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are doing the right thing to protect and give new life to 25,000 Syrians. We're focusing on getting the most vulnerable from the millions of prospective refugees currently in Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey. I wish to note on record the work of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, who are working diligently to process and assist the millions of refugees. Canada's commitment to give an additional $100 million to UNHCR is welcome, as the agency deals with one of the largest migration in recent history. We will need to do more. Finally, Mr. Speaker, Canada is a shining example to the world of tolerance, equality, justice, and human rights. We're leading by example by bringing in and integrating refugees from Syria. In fact, over the course of our history, many different peoples have called Canada home. We have built a just society that in many ways is the envy of the world. Yet, in this just society, there is great injustice. We have collectively failed our Indigenous, Inuit, and Métis peoples. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission report has many stories of survivors. I encourage you to look at some of those stories. Our government has accepted the recommendations of the TRC by Justice Murray Sinclair. The recommendations, if fully implemented, will set a new way forward. One of the recommendations in the report calls for an inquiry into murdered and missing Aboriginal women and girls. Imagine a major Canadian metropolis, be it Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto, Montreal, or Halifax. And now imagine if 1,200 people went missing from any one of these cities within a span of 40 years. Then imagine if 1,200 cases were unresolved. Can you imagine the outrage in these cities? So how do we, as Canadians, accept 1,200 murdered and missing Aboriginal women and girls in 40 years? Where do we even start addressing this issue? I'm proud that our government has committed to beginning this process of obtaining justice for the families. Our Prime Minister has demonstrated much-needed leadership on this issue. I'm proud that our government will outline the mandate for an inquiry into missing and murdered Aboriginal women and girls. The healing needs to start, but it cannot truly begin without a full understanding of the different parts that has led to this tragedy. This House, this Parliament, this time, we can reset the direction of our First Peoples. Mr. Speaker, I wish to conclude by acknowledging that we are on the traditional lands of the Algonquin people, and today, collectively in this House, we stand on the foot of history as we direct a new course, nation to nation, between Canada and its Indigenous, Inuit, and Métis people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.